on behalf of Left Chennai to the guests today. Thank you, sir. Okay, so once again, warm welcome to Chennai. Assuming this is your first visit to Chennai.
Although it's only been for work, and our visits have always been very short, one night, maybe sometimes. So it's not our first time, but for something like this, it's definitely our first time. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. I think lift always makes it special. Yes. So yes, before I have certain questions or points that we would like to know from your end because of this masterclass, I would like the audience to know that Shivan and Narresh have won some amazing awards. Best Emerging Designers at Marie Claire Awards in 2010. All India finalists in 2010, Best Software Designers at All Times Award 2010, Swarovski Jewelry Design Award 2010, Best Jeanswear Designers at the Dragna Young Fashion Awards, and they have been listed Forbes 30 under 30. And then the Wedding Season Influencer Awards. So, do awards really define your journey?
Yes, in college it kind of did. It became like sort of an identity for us back in the day. We would have any competition hours announced in college, and there were times that it would be hidden for us for a week so that we don't get to know and apply for it. But any competition that we were taking part in, everybody was like, oh, these were the daily part. We became like sort of a thing that if you were going for a competition, you would say come back. So yeah, I mean, in college it did, and the initial bit of a career kind of did, but then we realized that we need to grow out of that, and we actually like have never seen any validation post college.
Done something?
Well, I think competitions are a big part of it. I think when we both were in our fashion design, leather design, I think we were always trying to express beyond our careers and our assignments. And sometimes assignments can be very boring, and you want to do more than what is being asked of you to do. So I think design competitions were a windows way of self-expression. So every time there would be a design competition on the notice board, I would bring into his notice, so he would tell me that let's take part in this. And most of these design competitions were outside of our city. So, and most of them, the ones that we would generally pick would be the ones that would be in other countries actually. So that we get to travel. Because then the travel goes on the person who's organizing it, which is if we get selected. So it became a good excuse to travel. I think so. What started with as just reasons to travel, eventually ended up shaping our entire journey. So I think competitions have a long reason why we're doing design competitions.
Good, thank you. And I think all of the students who are listening to that do take part in a lot of competitions because, you know, that is what I think made both of them, pave their way and stand in front of us today. Right. So yes, while you just mentioned about travel, you know, I have seen one of your interviews where they mentioned that 80% travel and 20% work is what Shivan and Narresh usually do. So does travel really inspire you so much?
All the time. I think it's I think every brand stands for a certain culture that you create. Whether you know it or not, you're creating a stand for any its own culture. I think travel would be at the heart. It's because, like I mentioned, it got us to and so travel. Tim and I used to love traveling around the world, and we were just students, and we didn't know how else to travel. We could afford to travel, so the only way we could travel was if we made travel our parents.
The voice is not
Not
audible.
audible, not audible.
Change the mic. Your mic.
Is this better?
Yeah, much better.
That was better. That sentence.
So yeah, so I think travel was literally the only thing that got us together. We both shared a lot of passion for travel. We both had very different skill sets, although complementary, but very different skill sets. So the only thing we could both agree upon at any point in time was that we have to go to this country or see this place. And back when we were 17, 18-year-olds in college, we couldn't afford to travel. So I think the only money that we had was talent, and it was our only currency. So the only way we could do was just show up with good designs, and that would give us the opportunity to travel. And that's why I think that statement 80% travel and 20% work, because when you do that 20%, it's so much easier and it's so much fun that you don't even know when the work is done. So in hindsight, we call it 20% work, but for a lot of people who don't enjoy their work, this ratio becomes the other way. They work 80% very hard to enjoy 20% of their time.
The conventional side. Yeah. Thank you. So, as what I know from you, Narresh, you are a fashion design graduate, and Shivan is a leather design graduate, right? So how did you blend?
As Narresh was saying, that we both have a very complementary skill set. This obviously not many faculty were only here, but we would complete each other's assignments. I was very bad at compiling documents. I was very good at illustrations, and Narresh would get his illustrations done for me based on whatever the brief would be, and he would tell me that, I would want you to draw this, and I would draw it for him. And I was bad at asking for help, which is not the best thing to do, honestly, in today's day and age. Communication is the big way everybody is flowing in today's day and age. Ask for it. So I did. And he would somehow figure it out that his assignment is coming and he's not done it. He was like, what have you done? And I was like, okay, some things are compiled. And he would help me put it together in a document. He's very good at presenting things in a sequential way. And I was scatterbrained. I would not know. I would have ideas, but I didn't know how to funnel it. So, and that's how we both are very different in our skill sets. We're very complementary skill sets, and we realized it very early. And that's why we started taking part in competitions together as a duo. Even though at most of the places it wasn't even allowed, we would send 2 entries. And even if one got selected, we would convince the organizers what one person has done it, both people have done it, and they would eventually be convinced to go both of us. So we've really pushed our way, even bent the rules our way to make things work.
So, while you were what is the best memory that you carry from the campus?
Your voice.
There's just so many memories. This one is a very
Something
something coffee. Oh, something coffee would actually be kind of it's the borderline controversial actually, because I don't know when we were the first 4-year program in NIF. So we were the first batch in this, and as the first batch we used to call it the guinea pig batch because they were only 20 students. Yeah. And I think the history of NIF was the only time they had very little students in this batch, just 20 of us, in each department. And when we joined in, so our seniors decided to keep like an interactive week. There was a different way of calling it back in the day. It was an interactive week was kept, and every day was given a dress theme. I think that one week in college was our first week that we joined NIF. I think it was very revolutionary. Personally, as an experience of somebody who was coming, as a fresher who was coming to NIF, because every week our seniors did dedicated one day, like I said, for costume, and it allowed each one of us, and we were all from different departments, textiles, knitwear, leather, fashion, to just express our individuality. And that one week just really helped a lot of kids to just like come out, dress up their identity, be who they were, and it broke so much ice between students and seniors. It's one of my most memorable days. So yeah, that's one of my fondest memories that I take back from this protest.
I was run from the back door, like just escape that. I was very, very shy as a kid. I was still am. So that was like traumatizing for me. I was like, okay, there were team rules every day, and I was like, I just didn't know how to cope up with it. I would run away after like as soon as the class ended, I was run away so that I could possibly get out. But he was really having a good time.
Just to give you an example, for example, one of the days the theme was beach day. Okay. Now you can interpret it anyway. So there were kids who wore like sarongs and like beachwear, and then there were kids who turned up like fully on the sexuality spectrum, like a beach day, like the middle day. And it was so incredible to see that kind of inclusivity, that kind of acceptance, and that kind of courage that students had with each other, with their seniors. And you know, this is something you do not find in any other institute and college in this country. This sort of openness, this sort of environment of truly finding yourself who you are without judgment, no judgment from your peers, no judgment from your faculty, no judgment from the students whom you study with. So it's truly a very special place if you allow it to be, and if you see it the same way. So that's how special I feel NIFT is. And we both have this conversation amongst each other that, you know, I remember I was the only, in my class, the only guy who was from Delhi, who studied in Delhi, from a Delhi school, who was in NIFT in fashion design. And because there were just 20 students, everybody else was from, you know, from different towns, and sometimes from 2-3 different countries also, because we had international quota as well. But all of these students, by 4 years after which when we were graduating, NIF became this super finishing school. You know, it didn't matter whether you were a fashion design graduate or a leather or a knitwear designer. They polished you so well and so well rounded with your speaking skills, your communication, how you do presentations, how you research, how do you put a document together, how do you just present yourself to the world. And this is something no other industry again does. I think everybody's busy honing skills, which is what NIFT also does, but more than that, it really opens you up to the world. And I think truly a big part of your success is on your life skills, apart from your talent. And I think NIFT really takes that out in all its students, the life skills of just how do you show up to the world. And I think for that this is the best place to be.
Definitely. NIFT actually gives that platform, you know, to everyone to showcase their explorative abilities. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, there are multiple questions, so I don't know where to start with, but yeah, right. So, Indian designers are very much known for handcrafted traditional techniques, embroideries, whatnot, right? But Shivan and Narresh's work speaks a very global visual language. So how do you balance modern luxury with Indian sensibilities? Also, is actually implementing craft very important to show that you are an Indian designer?
I feel everything has to be spoken together, and you should be lost while it's being spoken. We decided to take a route which is contemporary India. We decided to do something that will help us travel with scope and brands here. We wanted to make sure that we do anything and everything that revolves an effortless style, an effortless way of living. So in that context, we started building on the brand, and color comes easy. Like I know that this guy's brilliant in colors, and because look at what we're surrounded with. The pink that we call it the Scapulary pink is actually the random pink that we lend to the world. The colors, the blues, we name it, the biggest of the big colors that are difficult to find in the world were being done here, dyed here. So color comes easy, and that was our currency to speak for who we are as an Indian designers from India, but the world has been doing and stealing it from us. But why don't we do it for the world the way we see it? That wasn't done before, so that's another point of view we brought in the
I think there's a lot of one thing that I would want, and it would be nice if all Indian designers now starting up, or if you're entering the future, would know is that to be Indian it's not an act you have to put on. It's so in you because you are Indian. So you don't have to try so hard to inculcate India in your work. It's going to come out anyways. So the more you design with ease and effortlessness without the burden of proving something that my creation must have craft so that I look Indian, or I must pick a craft and modernize so I look relevant in times of today. All of these are a lot of preconceived baggages of trying to check a box, and you have to go beyond of these boxes. You just have to be intuitive, and whatever you design, so that's how we are already culturally built a certain way. And you don't have to bring that on in such a hard way in education. It will come anyway. So all you have to actually be is just be yourself. And the Indianness will come across anyways. So I think that would be the answer to any designer doing Indian creation.
Thank you. So the next question would be, probably this is a very run-of-the-mill question, but yes, I think our students would love to hear from you. Would you like to walk us through your creative process? And in this process, do you actually have, difference of opinion? Because you are two different individuals.
I think this is what we will be speaking in the presentation as well, but yes, as two people coming to make a brand and coming from different walks of life, to a certain extent, we fight for the design that we wanting it to be presented eventually. We do fight for anything and everything that we feel right, and what comes out is a true combination of both of us. If I was to have a brand, I would probably think in monochrome. I would think in pastry browns and blacks and navies, and he thinks in technicolor. He thinks the eventual presentation, he thinks marketing, he thinks visual library, how will it look, how will it feel. So yes, sometimes I do get like, I've designed the silhouette and I'm not at all thought about what will it look like. It goes up to his table for adding colors and prints, and what comes out is an absolute unique piece that none of us knew what it looked like.
I think he summed it up pretty well on how things work between him and me. He's the silhouette guy, I'm the print guy, and like I said, we have very defined skill sets. So we let that be, and we usually try not to interfere in each other's work. Like if he's done a range of silhouettes, unless I have something productive to add. And when I design prints, then it's not his table, so then I go ahead and do it. And then we fight. We fight when we are discussing the scale or the impact that it has. Should it even take color and bring a certain silhouette? There's a lot of fight. There's a lot of fighting there, and I think we're both very opinionated about design. So it's very important we both bring ourselves to the table, and we don't bow down to each other's pressure. But ultimately, the design needs to win. And I think this third identity becomes the brand, which is not truly me, it's not truly you. It is something that has its own identity and form. And that's why it's a third person, and it should be a third person. And that's how you see the brand.
Thank you. So now that you have mentioned about you being the master web prince, so the brand is very known for strategic use of prints, graphics on a variety of material. So what inspires your signature prints? I mean, I do know that travel plays a vital role, but do you do that like season after season to ensure that there is, say, no overlap or?
No, actually, so a lot of these actually will be covering in the presentation, but in the shortest form possible, if I was to answer your question, I think being authentic is the best way to do something which skips trends, has a longer shelf life on the table, and more importantly, when you consistently you're being yourself and you're being authentic, then you're also creating a brand that stays beyond its own time. And I think that's what comes across with Prince also, as far as you're traveling, yes, you're doing everything, but if you're putting yourself to every design process, ultimately what comes out is an authentic piece of garment or print or what you do. And as far as you do that every season, every print has a unique signature. It's you without trying hard to be you, and it is still relevant and timeless even if you look back 10 years later. Because it's not riding on a trend, it's not riding on what Pinterest says or what 10 other designers are doing in the world currently.
I think probably this is assuming this would be a new question for you. So your brand does some interesting knitwear pieces, very interesting I must say. And as a knitwear design faculty, I show a lot of your works to my own students, many of them sitting here. And they refer to your pieces, both apparel, home furnishing, decor, tabletops, whatnot, everything in a very stunning manner. That okay, does India also have a market for this? So, what is your take on it? Do you really think India actually has a market for it? And did you strategically start knitwear, or was it a decision?
I graduated in leather design, he graduated in fashion, and never taught knitwear, but eventually I did have 1 week course in Milan where I was doing my masters. I had a German teacher who taught me how to do magnets on the machine, and that opened up my eyes about it. I think I took about 7-8 years post the brands. Knitwear, yes, we did. I mean, if you can't swimwear, yes, it's part of knitwear. So that was one thing. So I started knitwear from the very beginning up to my masters. But doing flat knit hand knits was something that I was obsessing over because I learned it through a very sharp-minded German teacher, and I was very obsessed with it. But I eventually, in fact, thanks to NIFT, an intern who I decided I will bring on board, and I said, you set it up. You bring those machines. I have an idea. I know what to do, but you start this. And she started it, and that's where I was like, I needed hands because I did not have the hands to execute what was being what I thought. So I eventually did have an intern who gave me that hand, and she brought in this machine. And then I hired a guy who could do that, and now I'm obsessed with it. Like I want to do different kinds of structures, a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of push and pull. We manage some interesting pieces, yes. And guys, there is a gap market, yes. Sometimes when we started swimwear also, there was literally no market, if you think about it. We had to develop the market, we had to figure it out, how can we push it. What we're doing is unique, but where are the clients? Sometimes if the client is there but is not a client right now, we have to build that client. So we did put in a lot of effort to build this market, to open up the market, push it on retailers, taught them, train them how to sell swimwear. Yes, that also can be done. Sometimes there is no market, but you make your market your own, and then you will enjoy a big part of competition till the competition actually arises.
One of the biggest things to learn is that everything sells. You just have to put it in the market, and everything sells. Every price point sells, and every object can be sold. If you have the courage of making a good product and putting it in the market, it has a market. The market already always exists. I think you just need people to take entrepreneurs to take courage and put something new out there. And rest is just universe and being at the right place at the right time, and those are things that are really genuinely beyond your control. So yeah, but it's your job to put it out there.
Excellent. Feels so nice to hear handmade, flat-made coming from Indian designers. Very nice. So now that Narresh, you were talking about the market, Indian market. What do you think Indian fashion market is in need of right now? More slow fashion brands or labels, or more retail to suit the customer requirement?
Both of them and so much more. We have to understand that when we look at market is not a polarizing topic like black and white or yes and no. It's not one woman or one man deciding what they would want to wear. We're talking about crores of people, and these crores of people are driven with crores of different emotions and their everyday being. And your emotion guide you to dress up for different days and acquire design for different reasons. That means that if you're a designer sitting anywhere in the country and with whichever emotion you design an object, it already has a market because those emotions are also behind somebody's reason for consuming that. So everything has a market. To suit the brand, a sustainable, slow brand, but also a very fast-paced and a very technologically advanced brand. Everything has a market. So I would say that do not build a brand based on what market that you assume is outside, but build a brand that is the closest to you, what comes to you most naturally. If you are a designer who likes to shut yourself from the world and is very emotional and you like to design from emotions, then create something that's very close to your heart, because that's the best you can do. And that's good enough. And if you're somebody who's talkative, chirpy, wants to go out and meet 1,000 people on the weekend and come back home and design, then be that person and design something. Maybe your creation helps communicate to the world differently, and somebody who designs locking themselves up in a room helps somebody get out of something nicely. I mean, who knows what we create or how it helps the world. But any honest creation will always be a contribution to this world. So all you can do is just create honestly. That's very true to you, and you are contributing to this world.
Thank you. I think this question probably would be more from the student's side. You were mentioning about a unique style, having a unique style, possessing one. Many design students struggle to find their unique voice because of the confusion or the pressure from the market, or the understanding that the creativity cannot feed them. So what advice would you give to them while they are discovering their signature style? Anything that you feel is ideal for them?
I think this is one of the biggest burdens in the design industry you hear even before you enter the design institute, because everybody is so busy always telling you that what is your signature, what is your signature, even before you become a designer. I think you step into NIF knowing at the back of your mind that I need to know what my style is, I need to know what my signature is. And while this is it can feel like a very daunting task for any designer, I feel that the answer does not lie in a simple answer to say that you will get it after 20 years of service or 10 years of knowing your design. It can come to you in a day, and it can come to you as you move along. And there is no right answer here. Personally speaking, for ourselves, we never intended to know where we are currently as of now. I think we just knew our next step, and that is enough. And sometimes you have to let that be and not the length of time bog you down. You have to almost treat it like, imagine if you're driving a car to a hill and your headlights are on and all you can see is a few meters ahead. And that's good enough because it makes you reach your destination, eventually wherever that is, right? So if you keep driving, you trust what you can see just a little ahead of you, and that's good enough. You're safe and you reach somewhere. Sometimes this is the best strategy. As a designer, if you don't know your design style, it's okay, but you know who you are in the current moment. So just take that and design your next assignment, design your next collection, design what's in front of you. And then that itself will open the next door and it'll allow you to be yourself. Maybe in the middle you'll go travel somewhere, you'll see something new, you'll come back and add to that. So that's it. Or just take step-by-step approach, and eventually you start to look back. You look at your own dots and you realize, okay, this is my style, this is how I work with problem solving, this is how I, when something comes to me, I design it this way. A lot of our journey was established exactly in this way. Just to give you an example, because we were doing swimwear, when we opened our studio in Delhi, we realized that all the women that were coming to us were not coming to us to buy fashionable bathing suits. They were not. Most of the women that came to us were in their 30s or 40s. They had kids, and because they had kids, they had pregnancy scars, they had stretch marks. There are all the reasons that were stopping them from now just going to the pool or just like going on a holiday. And they were like, we don't have a swimsuit that hides all these body scars and things, so can you design something for me? Now this is far away from me thinking that I want to design a hot bikini, but that's also known as color blocking aesthetic. So with us, when we were designing for women like that, we didn't even realize that people started to say, oh, those boys who do color block swimsuits. And while the reason to do that was because we were solving a problem. So we never intended to, okay, let's go back to India and start color block swimsuit brand. It was never like that. First, it was, okay, let's make swimsuits. Why? Because we love to travel. Then when we came back, we started doing swimsuits. Then the clients started to give us some problems, so we started to fix those problems. And the way we fixed those problems ended up becoming a certain aesthetic that we started to be known for. So when we looked back, we said, okay, clearly we do good color block swimsuits, so let's build on it. So you do some more color block swimsuits. So from day one when you start, you do not know where you end up by the time you step 10. But you know where your step 2 is. And that's good, and it takes you there. So I think that's just how it should be. If you don't know your style, then it'll come to you. Yeah, just be yourself.
Good. So while you were actually mentioning about Indian women and how many of them reach out to you with special requirements. Shivan and Narresh as a luxury label, how do you balance the functionality and luxury, especially for the Indian body type? Because we are a very diverse, body type. So how do you ensure you do that?
I know that NIF was instrumental in doing the Indian sizing. But we actually, when we started the brand 15 years back, we took about 3 to 6 months just to establish the swimwear block for the Indian body type. It took us that long to figure it out for the customer, for the Indian body type, let's just say that, because slightly shorter than her, so bigger than her, and fuller than the bust. And that, I had the block that my teachers gave it to me, they were making for European brands. And I had that block, but then I was like, this would only fit on ideal model-like body. I had to change it. So we tried many, we made many swimsuits and made a lot of our friends, mothers, all of them try those pieces to come to an ideal block that worked for the real body type. So yeah, we did our own swimwear block and
Good. So thank you, and you can run your presentation, and after that we can probably take some questions, informal questions from the students. So in case any of you have any questions, please do keep it ready. We will take a couple of questions depending on the time.
Hi everyone. I guess we've spoken most of it while the questions were being asked, but there's still a few points we feel that we can show you guys through the presentation.
Okay, so with presentation called Future of Fashion, because we're talking to third and fourth year students, we realize that we're all about to step into the industry, either as fresh graduates, currently or maybe within a year's time. So we felt that touching upon some foundational topics of what it means to be a design graduate, or what your expectations from the design industry can be. Let's try and talk about that. So we're talking about some foundations, so let's start with letter A, authenticity. We very briefly mentioned that I think for any designer, authenticity is one of their biggest tools with which they function in this industry. And while it's okay for you to keep your eyes open and see what other designers are doing, what's happening on Pinterest, what's happening on global runways, and what you take as an inspiration point, eventually in due course of time, it's very important that you start to realize who you are in this creation. The moment you start adding yourself to something, you start to be authentic. And authenticity goes a huge way, because authenticity then becomes separated from trends. That basically means that you and your creations have a much longer shelf life than you making something just because either the market demands it or only just because it's trendy at the moment. So yeah, authenticity will always be your biggest currency as a designer, so always be looking out for that. A few pot shots of what we're known for, since we're a holiday, luxury holiday brand. I think when we started out, the most authentic that we could have been to ourselves was why we wanted to even do this. And it was a very honest conversation that we both had when we were studying, that after taking part in so many design competitions, what category of clothing do we want to do? And because both him and we were so obsessed with traveling and seeing the world, we said, let's pick up a category that makes us travel, but more importantly, the person, the man or woman we designed it for, it makes them travel too. So it creates this ecosystem of travel. That we're either traveling for someone or somebody's traveling because of us. So we picked up a swimsuit. Now this had no logical reasoning of India has a very big swimsuit market. What is the size of this market? How would Indian women even wear it? How would we sell it? We didn't question any of this. It was just an authentic emotion that we like to do this and we must do it, and it's brought us till here. And that's why Shivan and Narresh seem to be a very authentic brand, something that has a very strong and a unique voice. And it helps you stand out from any of the competition that exists out there.
Well, the idea is to go beyond. It could be go beyond the academics, go beyond where you try different things in life. Try surround yourself with what will help you push your boundaries, because that's what we did. Competition was a way for us to go beyond. I know that I was a relatively lazy ass in college. This guy used to find any competition and put it on my table, and then he would just somehow push me to start thinking as to what are we going to apply to it, what are we doing, how are we planning this. And then it would tickle our brain and let's do this, let's do that, and eventually we'll apply for it and getting selected. Travel was a big bonus, and that itself for us was going beyond. I know that I personally was falling short of attendance, but because of going to these competitions, somehow college has really given me the platform to let me do this, and it was going beyond to a certain extent. This is another sense of admiration like this.
So I think the point with beyond is also that everything that's in front of you is more than just a tangible object or the experience that you take. So when you look at something, always have the ability of looking beyond what it looks like. So this is just an example. As a printmaker, we went on a holiday to Japan, and while we were in Japan, we came across a very celebrated Japanese photographer called Nobushu Araki, and his photographic work, he used to combine a lot of tropical elements of plants and leaves with gory animals and cut fruits and kind of a very dark imagery. It was really known for that.
The idea of for us to take his work, we turn it into soothing to the eye, pleasant to look at, and resort for it like once on a holiday. And it was there, it was in front of us, but what we did and how we interpreted it was on us. By the end of it, it's a version, or so to say, not even a version now. If you look at it, you can't even figure that this was inspiration for us to start with.
So I think when you start developing this sense of looking beyond, your inspiration just ends up being the starting point. But where you end up being is that you start being where your authentic self is. And then it has nothing to do with where you started from. So some more examples of when you say going beyond, it also means going beyond design and going beyond fashion. So it means that you are constantly keeping yourself open for new collaborations, you're keeping yourself open for exploring beyond designing things that you thought you would design. So for example, in our journey, we've designed everything from clothes that your pets wear to the kind of houses your pets live in, to even furniture, which for example will be in the next slide. So, for example, this was a line of furniture that we designed for a luxury Scotch brand, which is in Scotland, in Glenmorangie. And we went to Scotland and they wanted us to experience the entire process of whiskey making, which takes them 20 years. So whether depending if you're having a 20-year-old Scotch or you're having a 15-year-old, you understand the entire design process. And then we had to come up with a product that they would endorse, that we can sell in the market. And
I mean, this is also something, when we had gone to Scotland, we had our minds completely blank. It's exactly like not knowing what will come about. And because they said, obviously, we don't want traditional anything to do with Scotch, but how do you associate Scotch with a product? We did not know what we were doing. And that's when you go like, okay, we didn't go with any preconceived notion. So that's the idea of like, just land up there, take in everything, take in as much as you can, take photos, smell flowers, and that it's actually a sensory experience. For us, that's called the Old Swirl sofa, which was inspired from how the whiskey is aged in oak barrels. And then eventually how the whiskey turns into a glass and you swirl it. It's called the Infinity Swirl sofa, which kind of represents how a Scotch is swirled within a glass.
And while it had nothing to do with whiskey, but it had all the emotions that go on whiskey, because the fact that you always enjoy a glass of whiskey, at the end of the day, with somebody you have an instant bond and connection with. It could be your son, it could be your best friend, it could be at the end of the day you're catching up with your friends, but you always enjoy whiskey sitting on a couch or in your home. So just that emotion was then turned into a product experience and into material that has nothing to do with swimsuits, as you can see. So this is what is called going beyond. If you keep your mind open and you always are looking to go beyond, those are kind of opportunities that will come your way, and you can exercise your design vision in any of the scenarios. Okay, C. So I think cultivating cultures, connections, and collaborations. I think this is the most prominent subject of our times of today. I think we live in digital times, so we're constantly connecting with people. This is one of the golden ages of connecting with each other, and you must use this at the best of your scenario. It essentially means that go out, meet people, talk to meet people. Everything is not transactional. Make connections, even though it may not mean anything to you in that moment. But make friends. You don't know who helps you where eventually in life. So get out and be open for collaborations. I think collaboration is a big key word today in fashion. And cultural curiosity. Again, a big C, which I think Shivan will talk about.
The idea, I remember when I was studying in Italy, seeing Lucio Fontana's work. He's an Italian artist, simply slashing canvases, and he's a master artist. And that helped me get inspired for this collection, but at the same time, we contextualize it, how will it be seen within an Indian background. And as you can see, they look completely different. Again, the cultural context in which you fit in this swimsuit in this absolutely gorgeous hotel, but with this very, very daring swimsuit. You just have to push it, challenge yourself, push the boundary of where would this cultural talks will lead you to.
This was the time when everybody just wanted to do new things. And she said that, it's my wedding and I want to do mehendi by the pool, and I just want all my friends to jump in the pool after the ceremony. Now, so she's like, I don't know, I've been designing my swimsuit, so can you design me a sari, because I have to wear a sari, my parents are going to be there, I have to look fit for the occasion, but I want to jump into the pool, after the ceremony with my friends. Now, it's such an innocent emotion at heart, right? And the problem is so relevant on the design table. So we had to come up with something which is obviously waterproof. She should be able to jump. It has to be relevant to the occasion and of course the family. We started to look for the thinnest jersey possible, a jersey that would drape like a chiffon, but actually be made as light as 80 GSM in weight. And this is how, just as that problem on the table, bikini side was born, which is essentially, if you recode it, it's a swimsuit with a yardage of fabric that you can drape as a sari. And as simple as it sounds now, but it never existed in the fashion vocabulary. And when this was put out as one of the innovation, it was featured everywhere, from New York Times to the Washington Post. It's been worn from Kim Kardashian to Beyonce, everyone. So in the whole fashion library, a silhouette like this didn't exist. And because the West never needed a silhouette like this, but the East also needed a silhouette like a swimsuit, but only contextualized for its functionality here. So this is how, as designers, you do not even know, but you end up contributing to society and so many people out there only by just listening, like listening to the customer, listening to who you're designing for, and cultural context just gets built up on its own. Like I said, you don't have to try too hard. Being Indian will just come to you. All you have to do is just solve the problem. And since we're talking about culture, and in this sense we're talking about the Shivan culture, the culture that we stand for, inclusivity is a big part of it. When we spoke, and Shivan was speaking about earlier, building a bodice block that fits Indian body type. Indian women in general are very different from women across the world. Unlike European or American women, we have smaller torsos, we have wider hips and a bigger bust line. It essentially means that every time an Indian woman actually shops for lingerie, she's actually either buying American sizing or a European sizing, which is not designed for her. So when you wear something that's not designed for you, it obviously will not fit you the way it should. And when it doesn't fit you the way it should, you will always tend to wear another piece of clothing on top of it and another piece of clothing on top of it. So essentially, in the name of the veil of decency, you're actually problem solving a design problem that you're wearing something that's not designed for your body. So we're lucky today that now NIFT has an Indian body sizing chart ready, and very soon we will see it rolling out. But particularly in intimate garment industry, swim and lingerie industry, this is really the essence of any brand, which is the fit. And because we were always very inclusive as a brand, we were designing for Indian women. How could you not design for women of all shapes and sizes? So it was very critical that if we had to be successful monetarily and financially, keep doing collection after collection, we are endorsed and bought by real women who really wear swimsuits and actually go out either for a holiday or otherwise. And hence, from a communication strategy point of view, from products point of view, inclusivity is very, very big for us as a culture.
I mean, a dialogue, mostly to understand what are we here for. Designers, as it's on art, it has to serve a function. So design, that's one of the things that will probably make you make. The client's brief to us to design something for a poolside gallery was a dialogue. It was serving design a function, and without even realizing it, we were having a dialogue with the client, and we were contemporizing Indian needs, contemporizing and making India look contemporary with the cultural context. So all this sort of is super important because we are here to solve problems and we need to address that.
So design is always a dialogue, like Shivan said. It's a dialogue because what it means is that you're constantly, as a designer, having a dialogue. Either you're having a dialogue with your client, or you're having a dialogue with the market, or you're having a dialogue with yourself. Because these are the only three scenarios in which you design. You you could be designing, like I said, for a client, for the market, because the market needs it, or you're doing it just because you want to create something. But either way, this is a dialogue. And when it's a dialogue, it means that you have to be very keen, that you have to be listening. You listen to the client or the market or to yourself. Some examples of what dialogues lead to. So, for example, on our left is Beyonce, which is so, it's such an interesting story because Beyonce reached out to us on Instagram on a message post looking at a collection that we did inspired by Africa, but at Indian Fashion Week, where we had one raffia sleeve which was attached to a dress. And she said, I love that sleeve, and can you make a swimsuit for me that I will come to India for the first time to perform? Look at that dialogue and connection, and where does it even start and end? If I today sit in my studio and even think that let me write an email to Beyonce and say, will you please wear my creation? Can this ever happen? Absolutely not. You could be spending millions of dollars on marketing just to try and reach someone like her to endorse you. But here, she reaches out to you and she validates your creation and she wears something because you've designed it authentically. So this is the power of design, and it's also the power of authenticity. When you design something that's very close to you, without any rhyme and reason, because you think that is the most authentic self that you can put it out there, you start to get connected to so many different things in the world, and the world starts to reach out to you. And the same was the case with Kim Kardashian. She's wearing a red bikini sari. And this is on the Vogue cover, so Vogue India went to US to shoot with her. And she had 200 options in front of her, but she picked out this one. She's like, this is such an interesting silhouette, I would love to wear this. So again, no matter push and pull works there, it's just good design. So
again, we had addressed this before, because we were contemporizing a silhouette that was literally a swimsuit bathing inside and had a marriage of a sort. It was so contemporary that even a celebrity like that for a shoot went on the rack and picked this up for the very first thing he wear for the shoot, because it was appeasing to the world. Now here we are basically homogenizing design for the world.
Land of white, heavy land, the panoramic views. He and the generation has always been a brand promise, which are represented by the media, the 5 iconic iconographs of the brand, and this year, with Devi Land, the idea was to explore the lifestyle of the city of Delhi. To explore the ski town of Delhi, both me and Shivan took a helicopter ride over this magnanimous ski town. It's the views that I captured and came back became the inspiration point for this back in the big studios, a lot of these photographs were then taken forward. The aerial views were then used to come up with different textures of white paint on paper and on canvas. The idea was to use a thick piece of acrylic paint and really texture it on the paper so you almost represent the slopes of the sea. And with all of that, you highlight it with the shadows, the black shadows of the crisp sun that falls on the trees. And then you also mark the tiny houses and just people seen across the canvas by slopes of it. The magnificent views of Levy from a helicopter ride transformed and ended up being the inspiration for this film called Levy Land.
So a very interesting example of design as dialogue. We were invited to see Finland by the Finland Tourism Board. To just come and experience the country, be inspired. There was no carrot at the end of the stick to say you must design something that looks like Finland. But when you go with just an open experience and you come back and you tangibly turn that experience into a product, you can organically do something so refreshing and new as far as you're open to the idea of having this dialogue, either with yourself or with the location. So that's why I wanted to include a slide like this, just so that you understand what dialogue can be. And this is the Indian context of it. So this is an example of we one day were working on an interior project and we had to style somebody's house. So we wanted to source some big antiques because it's a big farmhouse and we had to source some beautiful vases. So we went to, somebody told us that, go to Rajasthan, there's a village called Shekhawati, there's a Shekhawati region which has a lot of these small villages, and you'll be able to buy like really massive, those pots and pans from the Mughal times and come back. So anyways, we go to Shekhawati region for a project, and while the purpose to be there was this, we ended up staying at this place where around our hotel was just these old abandoned havelis. And not one or two, but like cluster of havelis. And on the walls of these havelis were all these frescoes, like Indian frescoes. And that really fascinated us. So we took 2 days off, and we both of us got bikes. And what we did was we just biked around the whole region, and we just like documented the walls of these havelis. At some places there were guards and everything, so like we just crossed over the gate and went inside and like gorilla style just clicked some shots and came back. Because what was fascinating was like on these frescoes you had the British murals. You had Krishna, Lord Krishna painted but in 1920s style, like a flapper dress style. And you had such interesting documentation of Indian times. And anyways, I came back and I started researching, and we found out that all these havelis belonged to the silk traders back in the day, about 200 years ago. And all these havelis belonged to the merchants, the silk merchants, because they were so wealthy. They used to, and Shekhawati was on the silk route, so they would make these massive palaces, mansions for their homes. And then you would paint on your walls because that was a status symbol, because you could afford to get painters to make wall murals. But since they were painted back from 1800s till 2000s, they were also documenting the times of today. So on the murals you could see a telephone, you could see like an airplane, but the Haveli was like from 1890s, and all of them were abandoned. So I researched further and we found out that this is actually the largest collection of wall murals in frescoes in the world. It's not in Italy, but it's actually in our country, in Rajasthan, on our backyard. I mean, I'm from Delhi, so in our backyard. So, and you're shocked and surprised that there's so much in our own country that you don't even know, that when you travel you discover. And anyway, so we came back, and then our next collection eventually, and it was never the plan, was then fully inspired by Shekhawati region. And this was one of the prints from that, which is called Maru. Maru is also the color, the local color that they call over there, which is the blue color in the language, so we named it. But if you look closely to this print, it's actually just making animals and all the local plants and trees and flora and fauna of that region, but hand painted in a very Fresconian way. E, very important, stands for evolution. You, as a designer, you constantly have to be open to evolution.
That's what we were discussing, like, you don't have to see eventually where you land up, but every day is an evolution, every day is a step towards it. And I was talking, because that's what gave us the platform to do many things under the brand's umbrella. We've indulged ourselves, we've applied the philosophy of design, we name it as many categories as possible, from jewelry, bags, footwear, wallpapers, carpets, home, like crockery. It has many implications, and we never held ourselves back.
That's another example of when we started. I think we started with swimwear, and as we went along in the last 15 years, we went on evolving into one holiday lifestyle to another. So we started as a beach beach, was then moved to resort, it then eventually moved to cruise, eventually to safari, and finally we were also India's first ski wear brand in 2020, actually 2021. This has been our evolution. So even though we stay true to be a holiday brand, we wanted to capture all the lifestyles of holiday, so that essentially as a customer, whether you're holidaying on land, water, beach, or like in the mountains, you only think of Shivan and Narresh, and it doesn't matter in which part of the world you might be in. So this is evolution, not only because we want to evolve into that, but also because you're open to keep evolving, and as a designer.
And we have thought about it all throughout, like how we can plan that, but we hadn't done safari and ski wear back then. It was 10 years, but we had this plan forever to do ski wear. In 2020 was our 10th anniversary show, was the first show that we actually showcased a small range of winter jackets and winter clothes.
Some ideas of all the various products and things we do. She has spoken about them already, from footwear to jewelry to bags. And this is, it's just a picture, but you guys can find this online. But so during COVID, since we're talking about evolution, we're also talking about evolving with what happened when times around you are very different. So for example, in COVID, there were no fashion weeks. We were still designing, we had to keep our factories running because there were only two options. Either you shut down your factory and you ask everybody to leave, or you keep them engaged and keep giving them work. So we decided.
It was Feb, and by Feb we had sent the save the date for a 10th anniversary show. And the show date was March 27th.
26th, yeah.
Yeah, 27th is what I remember. And 21st, 22nd March, we were thinking about that resolution. We had to pull ourselves back. And we had to hold this collection back for 6 months. We didn't know what to do, where to shoot it, how to go about it. But eventually, we tested all the models, all the crew, and went to an abandoned quarry in Faridabad to shoot this show, which was then eventually released online for everybody to consume. And it was the highest watching show of that season in India.
It was it was shot without any live audience, obviously, in an abandoned mining spot around Delhi, it's close to Delhi.
I remember one of the models did test positive when you were doing the show. It was like, we were the times just scary at that point.
But it went on to become the most watched fashion film of the country once it was posted online, fully organically. So, like I said, even when times get tough, or let's say they're different, you have to keep evolving and keep doing things differently that you might be used to. And finally, F, which means failure. You have to normalize failure because failure is feedback. It's how you learn to start walking again. And
in terms of failures and we work with it, we literally never stop ourselves. And failures always taught us that never to do this again, or do it better next time, or try a different route. It's never stopped us. It's always made us think, how can we push, in which direction it needs to be pushed.
I think one of our like actually a very bright example of failure that we did. We have actually in both so many spaces, so many failures. For example, in terms of runway, there was one collection that we did in 2014, I think. There was a Lacme Fashion Week, and we had become so used to getting such good critics all the time that this particular collection it had very random reviews and like nothing very great, just like, and you know, as a creator, you can read between the lines when the writer is just like being soft on you, but you know that they actually don't
I
mean.
particularly remember after the show not feeling very good because it didn't feel good to me. But I also saw people around me, and one of them was very honest to tell me that this collection, you guys didn't do a good job. And this is the first time, it's 4 years into business, and the first time ever where I've got a negative review. I was a little shell shocked, and I'm like, oh shit, I did that. Like, it was not something I'm used to at this point in time. About awards and like success in terms of sales, in terms of media outreach, everything has been just so brilliant that I felt like so beaten by this whole thing. And you won't believe, eventually this collection was put up in the right order by a website in color coordinated way, and the collection actually online was received well, and I was like, what just happened? We were so complacent and did not care about how the collection has to be presented. And I feel like that was the biggest learning that we did. We now know very well the collection has to be presented in a color-coded way or sectional way, or how it has to be presented will also be received exactly like that.
I mean, that's how you learn merchandising, for example. You design all good clothes, but if you do not know how to put a rack, then your capsule collection doesn't sell. It's as simple as that. So as creators, we created individually a really nice, like a 40-piece collection, but just because we didn't know what to pair what with and what should follow what, the collection was perceived completely like staggered, and it didn't make sense to the people. So these are things that you learn only because you allow yourself to fail. So every time you fail, this is going to sound a bit abstract, but actually say what is right about this. You know, what did I learn from this? You have to put yourself and spin it positively. And if the answer may not come to you at that moment, but eventually it will come to you. That something you took forward from it, you just made your life experience slightly better.
It does for me.
Anyways, on that note, let's watch this. So actually, you guys are very lucky. You guys are very lucky because this is our yet to be released collection. It's not been released anywhere online. And we thought, you know, why not share this with Chennai first and see it, and then we'll talk about what does this mean.
So that means also a business head and partner. So this since it was a 15th anniversary.
Them are just like they don't have come from any fashion background. So I was just wondering that most of the people say that you don't necessarily need the fashion background to enter in fashion, right? So people, some of them are like little women, but they also said you don't necessarily we have to be in a fashion college to be a designer or something. So I just was wondering, like you as a Smith graduate, what do you think that Smith has shaped you? How has it what has it given you, and do you think how you would have been different if you weren't from a fashion background, like fashion college?
I personally feel that if I didn't get through that, I would have still been in design. I don't know what it would have been, but definitely, I would have taken the same amount of time that I have reached right now. I would have taken the same amount of time. It's not that if not doing it would have helped me in that corner, that time, or kind of thing. I just feel that sometimes you need to pause yourself, take things in, and sometimes you learn on the job and reapply yourself. And there is no right or wrong, honestly. At the same time, you can pause here and soak it all in. If you wouldn't have done this, if you would have been on the job from the very beginning, you would have eventually discovered yourself. It was a 1 week course, but right now the knitwear that we do is pretty wide and from all sorts of